The sun shimmered on the surface of the wide, calm lake, throwing golden reflections across the rippling water. Birds swooped above, their calls echoing in the quiet of the morning. On the wooden dock, Marcus Bennett stood, adjusting the ropes of his sleek black and white boat. For Marcus, this lake wasn't just water and shoreline. It was home, history and legacy. He had grown up nearby, running through the woods as a child, fishing off the dock with his late grandfather, and listening to stories about how the Bennett family had cared for and protected this lake for generations. What most of the neighborhood didn't know was that Marcus had recently inherited ownership of the entire lake, its surrounding shoreline, and even rights to the docks after his grandfather passed. But Marcus didn't flaunt his wealth. Dressed casually in a white t-shirt and jeans, he looked like any other middle-class man simply enjoying his weekend on the water. That modesty, however, was about to be tested in ways he hadn't imagined. From the corner of the dock, a sharp voice cut through the peaceful sounds of nature. "Hey! You there! What do you think you're doing?" Marcus turned slowly. Striding toward him was Linda Carver, known in the community as the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. Her sharp blonde bob swung as she walked, her arms folded tightly across her chest, her eyes blazing with judgment. Marcus sighed inwardly. He'd heard about her, of course. Everyone in the lakeside neighborhood had. She was notorious for nitpicking every little thing: grass an inch too high, a trash bin out 5 minutes too long, a car parked too close to the curb. They called her the HOA Karen behind closed doors, though no one dared to say it to her face. Marcus gave a polite nod. "Good morning." "Don't good morning me," Linda snapped, stepping closer to the edge of the dock. "You can't just park that boat here. This is private property." Marcus raised a brow, keeping his calm. "Actually, I'm well within my rights. I'm just tying it up before heading out on the water." Linda scoffed, her voice rising so that a couple of neighbors across the street began peeking out of their windows. "No, you're not. I'm the HOA president and I know the rules. That boat doesn't belong here. You need to move it immediately." Marcus glanced at his boat, then back at Linda. "And where exactly do you suggest I move my boat, Mrs. Carver?" Her eyes narrowed, her tone dripping with arrogance. "Anywhere else. This dock is for approved residents only. You don't even live in this part of the neighborhood, do you? People like you can't just come here and claim space as if it's yours." That last sentence hit Marcus harder than the others. "People like you." He felt the unspoken weight of her prejudice in those words. But Marcus wasn't about to let her rattle him. "I'm sorry you feel that way," he replied evenly, "but this dock is exactly where my boat belongs. I'm not breaking any rules." Linda's face flushed with anger. She pointed sharply at the boat, her voice rising even louder. "Listen here. Move this boat now or I'll call security. Do you understand me? You can't just waltz in with your whatever this is and take over our space. Some of us have worked hard to maintain the standards of this community." By now, a small group of curious neighbors had stepped outside, lingering along the street and whispering to one another. They knew Linda loved to make a scene, but even they were surprised at how aggressive she was being. Marcus calmly finished knotting the rope before straightening to face her fully. "With all due respect, Mrs. Carver, I think you should double-check your facts before making accusations. I have every right to be here." Linda's laugh was sharp, mocking. "Every right? Oh, please. What right could you possibly have? You're not even a homeowner here, are you? Show me proof. Show me your lease, your HOA ID, something, anything." Marcus could feel the tension rising, not just within himself but around the dock as the neighbors' whispers grew louder. A child tugged on his mother's hand and asked, "Mom, why is she yelling at that man?" The woman hushed her child, but didn't take her eyes off the unfolding drama. Linda took a step closer, her voice lowering but carrying even more venom. "This isn't your kind of place. People like you don't belong here, so pack up that boat and leave before I make you leave." For a moment, Marcus considered pulling out the stack of legal papers he carried in his truck, the ones that clearly stated he was not only allowed to dock here but was, in fact, the sole owner of the entire lake. But instead he chose patience. He wanted her to reveal herself fully before he revealed the truth. "Mrs. Carver," he said evenly, "I think it would be wise for you to stop making assumptions, so you might end up embarrassing yourself." Linda's face twisted with fury. "Embarrassing myself? You think you can threaten me? I've lived here for 15 years. I run this HOA, I know every rule in the book. You're nothing but a trespasser, and if you don't leave now, I'll make sure you regret it." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed across the wooden dock. Harold Simmons, one of the neighborhood's longtime residents, and one of the few people unafraid to speak his mind against Linda, had walked over. He was a tall man in his 60s with kind eyes and a steady voice. "Linda," Harold said firmly, "maybe you should ease up. I've seen Marcus here before. He's not causing trouble." He tied his boat fair and square. Linda whipped around to face Harold, her tone dripping with disdain. "Stay out of this, Harold. You don't know the situation." "Oh, I think I do," Harold replied, crossing his arms. "What I see is a man minding his own business, and you making a spectacle out of it." The neighbors murmured in agreement, though none spoke louder than a whisper. Linda's face turned crimson. She looked back at Marcus and practically shouted, "This isn't over. You'll see. By the time I'm finished, you and that boat will be gone." Marcus simply nodded. "We'll see." As Linda stormed off, muttering threats under her breath, Marcus stood silently on the dock, watching her retreat. He knew this was just the beginning. She wasn't going to let it go. But what she didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that Marcus wasn't just some visitor with a boat. He owned the lake. Every ripple, every dock, every right of access. And when the time came, Linda Carver would learn that her arrogance had led her to pick a fight she couldn't possibly win. By late afternoon, the lake had changed its clothes, no longer glittering gold, now a sheet of blue glass brushed by a lazy wind. A few kayaks glided past, and the smell of charcoal drifted from backyard grills. Marcus sat on the end of the dock with his boots dangling over the water, letting the calm erase the sting of Linda's words. He wasn't naive. He knew this neighborhood could be performative, smiles over fences, whispers behind curtains. But what happened that morning wasn't a whisper. It was a broadcast. His phone buzzed. A text from Harold. "You good, son? Need me to sit in on whatever she tries next?" Marcus smiled and replied, "I'm good. But thank you. Keep your phone on." Across the cul-de-sac, Linda's front door opened like the flap of a command tent. She marched to the community bulletin board beside the mailboxes and thumbtacked a fresh notice. "Emergency HO meeting, 7 p.m., boathouse." Even from the dock, Marcus saw the bold print and the underlines. Two of her closest allies, Paula with the pearl earrings and Jeff with the permanent frown, joined her like lieutenants awaiting orders. At 7, the boathouse lights snapped on. The small wooden hall buzzed with low conversation, folding chairs scraped, and a coffee urn burbled in the corner. A long folding table at the front held name placards for the HOA board. Linda sat at center, gavel in hand. "We're calling this emergency meeting to order," she announced, voice carrying. Marcus walked in quietly and took a seat in the last row. Heads turned. Phones came out. Harold slid into the chair beside him. "Figured she'd go nuclear," he whispered. Linda rapped the gavel. "First item, unauthorized use of community dock by a non-resident." She adjusted her glasses and lifted a printout. "This morning, an unknown man—" "Unknown?" Harold called from the back. He introduced himself. "You just didn't listen." Linda's eyes flicked up. "Mr. Simmons, you'll have your turn," she continued. An unknown man parked an oversized vessel on Dock B without permit. He refused to comply when asked to move it. This violates sections 4.2 and 8.1 of the Lakeside Covenant. Murmurs rolled through the room. Paula added, "I saw him too, very aggressive posture." Jeff nodded solemnly. "And the boat cheap aftermarket decals." "Not our standard," Marcus stood. "May I speak?" Linda's smile was thin. "This portion is for board discussion, sir." A woman in the second row raised her hand. "If he's the one involved, why can't he speak?" "Because procedure," Jeff said, tapping the bylaws binder. Marcus sat again, biting back a laugh. "Procedure when it suited them." Linda shuffled papers theatrically. "Security recommended escalation. For the safety of residents, I propose a fine for trespass and an immediate tow order for the vessel if it reappears on any community dock." Before she could call for a vote, the boathouse door opened. Officer Del Rio from the County Sheriff's Department stepped in, cap tucked under his arm. He scanned the room, saw Marcus, and gave the slightest nod. Marcus had phoned him after lunch, not to complain but to verify processes. Del Rio had patrolled these parts long enough to know the lake's tangled jurisdiction. Apologies for the interruption, Del Rio said, voice easy. Just here in case questions touch on county property. Linda stiffened. This is a private meeting, Del Rio smiled. The boathouse is on county recorded. Easement, public enough. A ripple of chuckles traveled the back row. Linda flushed and pressed on. We'll proceed. All in favor of authorizing security to tow— Hold up, Harold said, standing. On what authority? Dock B sits on shoreline easement. Who actually owns Dock B? The HOA manages it, Paula shot back. Manages, Harold echoed, ain't owns. Del Rio cleared his throat. For clarity, according to the county registrar, the lake and shoreline, including all fixed docks, were deeded to Bennett Holdings Trust last spring. He glanced at Marcus. Mr. Bennett here is successor trustee. Management agreements with the HOA are limited to maintenance and scheduling. Property rights stay with the owner. The room tilted. Whispers sharpened into gasps. Cameras rose like a field of periscopes. Linda's laugh was brittle. That can't be right. We pay dues for those docks. Paying to maintain a road doesn't make you the highway department, Harold muttered. Paula's face went crimson. So you're telling me this stranger owns our lake? Marcus stood again, his voice calm. Not yours or mine alone. My grandfather purchased the lake 80 years ago when no one else saw its value. He put it in a family trust to preserve it from developers. I honored his wishes. The trust allows community access, responsible access, through agreements with the HOA. I'm not here to close gates. I'm here to keep them from getting weaponized. Linda's gavel snapped down. This is absurd. If you own it, you should have identified yourself. You created a disturbance, ma'am, Del Rio said gently. Identification isn't a prerequisite for respectful treatment. A teen in the third row whispered to his friend, That's the guy she yelled at. Mom recorded it. His mother shushed him. Glancing guiltily at Marcus, Linda straightened her blazer. Fine. Ownership aside, we maintain standards. That boat meets every safety requirement, Marcus said. Registration current. Noise levels compliant. Mooring lines proper. If you're worried about aesthetics, we can form a dock guidelines committee with actual resident input, not edicts. But threats and towing? No. A small woman with silver hair stood. My name is Lillian. My husband used a wheelchair. The HOA made us remove a small ramp from our dock because it didn't match the others. It took him months to learn to fish from shore again. They called it standards. She folded her hands. Standards should include kindness. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then growing. Linda pounded the gavel. Order. Order comes from fairness, Harold said. Let the man propose something. Marcus looked around the room, faces wary, hopeful, embarrassed. He took a breath. Here's what I suggest. We draft a lake access charter. It will spell out rights and responsibilities. Safety, noise limits, hours, environmental care. The HOA can manage scheduling. The trust will provide maintenance funding. Yes, funding for dock repairs and shoreline preservation, including ADA-compliant access. We'll create a resident advisory panel with seats for long-timers and new families. Transparency on fines, no more secret letters. Everything posted online. Silence followed. Heavy, thinking silence. From near the door, a young mother raised her hand. My kids love the water, but sometimes the HOA patrol yells at them for splashing near the boats. Will the charter make space for families too? Yes, Marcus said. We'll designate swimming coves and calm hours. We can all share the lake. Jeff scowled. Who pays for this funding you just promised? I do, Marcus replied simply. The trust does. This lake has income. From fishing permits, film crews, even data boys the university rents for research. My grandfather didn't hoard wealth. He stewarded it. We'll use part of that to fix collapsing planks, treat invasive weeds, train lake stewards from among our own teens. Instead of hiring outsiders to bully, we'll teach our kids how to protect what's theirs. The boathouse warmed with murmurs of approval. A boy pumped his fist. His mother pressed it down, smiling. Linda's lips thinned. This is a lot of talking, but it still doesn't change your behavior this morning. You were disrespectful. Harold barked a laugh. He tied a boat and said, Good morning, Linda. Marcus remained gentle. If I raised my voice, it was after being told people like me didn't belong. I won't accept that for myself or anyone else. A quiet fell. Paula looked away. Jeff closed the binder. Del Rio tipped his cap. Seems like you've got a path forward. I'll leave you neighbors to it. He gave Marcus a nod and stepped out. Linda sensed control slipping like sand through fingers. We vote now, she snapped. Motion to censure Mr. Bennett for… Point of order, Harold cut in. You can't censure the lake owner at an HOA meeting. Not your jurisdiction, Lillian leaned forward. How about a different motion? We form that charter committee tonight. 3 board members, 3 residents at large, and Mr. Bennett or his representative. A dozen hands shot up. Second! Someone called. Linda hesitated, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Very well. All in favor? The chorus of A's left little room for doubt. Only Paula and Jeff muttered nay carried, Harold announced before the gavel could. I nominate Lillian Teresa from Maple Court, she's got 2 swimmers, and Jamal's dad who runs the bait shop. Names scribbled. Emails exchanged. The meeting shifted from confrontation to logistics, dates, drafts, work groups. Marcus fielded questions with patience, the way water accepts stones without losing its course. When the crowd thinned, Linda approached, tight smile curved like a blade. You made a spectacle of me. You did that yourself, Marcus replied softly. But you can still help shape something better. She laughed once, bitter. You think I'll share power? I think the lake teaches humility, he said, nodding toward the dark water outside. It looks still, but currents move underneath. Fight them, you tip. Work with them, you cross. She stared at him, searching for sarcasm, finding none. This isn't over, she murmured. It can be better, he said. Outside, Harold clapped Marcus on the back. You handled that like a conductor. Took all that noise and turned it into music. Half the orchestra's still out of tune, Marcus said, smiling. Phase 2 is the hard part. Writing the charter, getting buy-in, fixing planks before someone falls through. They walked the path along the shoreline. Porch lights winked on across the water like friendly stars. From a yard came the laughter of kids chasing fireflies. A heron lifted from the reeds, legs trailing, wings silent. At Dock B, Marcus untied his boat, letting the lines hang loose for a moment, while he watched the water breathe against the pilings. He pictured his grandfather's weathered hands teaching him knots, teaching him patience, teaching him that ownership without stewardship is just a prettier word for greed. A car door slammed up on the street. Linda stood beside her SUV, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. He knew the tone. Fragile authority patching itself with threats. He also knew something else. The wind had shifted. Neighbors who once whispered now waved as they passed him. A teen asked if there'd be a lake cleanup. An older man requested a bench near the point for his morning coffee. Marcus pushed off from the dock and drifted into the open. Night crept in, painting the lake a deep indigo. He cut the engine and let the boat glide. The houses along the shore reflected in long, wavy lines. A community distorted, maybe, but still connected by water. His phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Mr. Bennett, this is Teresa. Thanks for tonight. My kids asked if they can volunteer as lake stewards. Also, I'm sorry for staying quiet this morning. Marcus typed back. Tell them yes. And thank you. We'll need many helpers. He put the phone away and looked up at the sky. Stars freckled the darkness. Somewhere across the lake a dog barked. Somewhere closer, Linda's voice still carried, brittle and bright. But the water absorbed the sound, softened it, and returned a hush. Tomorrow would bring drafts and arguments, measurements and maps. It might also bring retaliation. Letters, rumors, maybe even a stunt or two. Marcus would meet those things the way the lake met wind. Yielding where it made sense. Pushing back when it mattered. Always moving toward clarity. He started the engine and headed for home. The boat's wake drawing a clean, quiet line through the complicated reflections. The following week dawned cool and crisp, the lake wearing a veil of early fog. Marcus sipped coffee on his porch while flipping through drafts of the Lake Access Charter. His phone buzzed constantly, emails from residents offering suggestions, students volunteering for water quality testing, a retired carpenter pledging to rebuild the broken docks. It felt like momentum, a tide carrying them forward, but tides have riptides hidden within them. The sabotage begins. By Tuesday morning. Harold arrived with grim news. Somebody slashed the tires on Jamal's truck last night. Same night he was announced as part of the charter committee. Marcus sighed. Retaliation. Subtle enough to avoid fingerprints, but loud enough to scare. That afternoon, Paula circulated an email to half the community, claiming the trust had secret plans to privatize fishing rights and charge residents hefty fees. The subject line, Bennett's Lake Grab, read before it's too late. Screenshots flew across neighborhood group chats. Marcus drafted a calm response, attaching documents from the trust, proving that community access was guaranteed by deed. Transparency is the best defense, Harold encouraged. Still, Marcus could feel the anxiety in every neighbor's cautious glance. A public clash, the HOA scheduled a special session to review charter overreach. The boathouse filled again, tension thicker than humidity before a storm. Linda opened with venom wrapped in formality. Neighbors, we must ask ourselves, are we surrendering control to an individual who claims heritage but conceals ambition? Mr. Bennett promises funding, but at what cost? A leash is still a leash, even if gilded. Marcus stood slowly. If stewardship is a leash, it's one my grandfather wore gladly. The cost I ask is not submission, but cooperation. We've run this place with suspicion long enough. Let's try trust, Paula sneered. And what about the rumors? Exclusive contracts with researchers, charging us for access. False, Marcus said firmly, displaying copies of the agreements on a projector. Every cent earned from external groups is earmarked for lake upkeep. Nothing changes for residents, except better docks and cleaner water. A father from the back row raised his hand. My daughter fell through a rotten plank last summer. If the trust fixes that, I don't care whose name's on the deed. Murmurs of agreement spread. Linda slammed her gavel. We will not be deceived by theatrics. The turning point. The tension climaxed when Officer Del Rio entered, carrying a slim file. Apologies for the interruption again, but I thought you'd all want to see this. He handed copies to the front row. County auditors completed a review. Turns out HOA funds, our dues, were misused for private security services over the past 2 years. More than $40,000 billed to a company. Owned by Ms. Linda Harrington's cousin. Gasps exploded. Linda's face drained of color. This is slander. It's documentation, Del Rio replied. County will pursue it further. Paula looked betrayed. Jeff suddenly found the floor fascinating. Marcus didn't gloat. He simply said, this is why transparency matters. Power without accountability breeds abuse. Let's fix it together, or let the lake swallow us one by one. The reveal that night, as crickets sang and porch lights flickered on, Marcus finalized the charter with the committee. They named it the Bennett Stewardship Accord. It included guaranteed free access for all residents, annual public audits of lake income and expenses, safety upgrades funded by the trust, youth stewardship programs, a rotating resident council seat for diversity of voices. At the signing gathering the following weekend, neighbors lined up on Dock B to add their names. Families brought picnic baskets. Children dangled fishing rods. Even skeptics like Paula signed quietly, muttering that it was better than the alternative. Linda didn't appear. Rumors said she'd lawyered up. Marcus stood before the crowd, holding the pen his grandfather once used to sign the original trust documents. His voice carried across the water. This lake has seen division and harmony. Today it chooses the latter. We are not strangers on borrowed docks. We are stewards of a shared gift. Let's honor it. Applause rolled like thunder over the water. Phones rose to record. The story of Dock B, once an argument, now became a movement. Epilogue of Phase 3 that evening. Harold leaned back in a lawn chair, grinning. You turned their weapons into planks for the bridge, Marcus. Not bad for 1 week's work. Marcus smiled at the children splashing near the shore, at the repaired planks already glistening with sealant. It's not over, he said. There will always be another storm, but storms feed the lake too. As long as we hold steady, we'll weather them. Above them, the stars blinked awake one by one. The lake mirrored them, 1,000 lights scattered across still water, each one a reminder that even fractured reflections can shine together.